Alright, so next thing we're going to remove is hopefully the alternator. Now I say hopefully because the bolts for these go in at different angles, so hopefully I can just get them all out enough to be able to properly remove it. If not, it's going to be a part of this bracket, which I then have to remove from the cylinder head. It's really weird the way that all of this is bolted. Yeah, I'm going to have to probably take the alternator off with the head, or the top part of the cover, I guess you'd want to call it, because the bolt goes in from behind here, same with the other side, but then there's a bolt vertically that sits directly behind it, so you got to take those out to be able to get this off. So it's a bit ridiculous, but you know, it is what it is. So what I'm going to do to save me getting confused where these go, just going to wind those back in there, and just stick that one back on there as well, that way I know where it's supposed to go. Now next thing, we'll just remove the adjustment bracket. Ow. So it's worthwhile noting as well, this has a spacer behind it, so that just pulls it out away from the timing case itself. So all that will just stay together. Put that in there. Now we need to remove the crankshaft bolt. So we'll just have a look in our goodie drawer and see what we got available. We just got to work out what size it is. I'm going to try a 32. Oh no, that's a 30. Okay, so it's smaller than a 30. That's a 30 mil, by the way. All right, cool. So we're going to go 1 1/8. Cool. So grab the rattle gun and we'll just send it with that. All right, grab the old Roby rattle gun and we're just going to go full send. Wow, that did not take a lot at all. So you can see, like I was talking about before, so the twisted socket piece, so the old crank handle would go in here, and as it twists, it starts to go, and then as it gets speed, the bolt actually spins faster than the socket, which then kicks it off. So it's worked pretty well designed. Like, it's really smart, you know, for them to have been able to work this out back in the 50s and, you know, even earlier, I guess. It'd be really interesting to know the first cars that had this as standard they came with, and it's actually quite interesting. I reckon inside the car there still could be the original crank handle, but like, imagine that, walking out every day, putting in the T-piece and just cranking over your car by hand. Obviously the compression ratio is probably quite low, I'd imagine, to be able to fire this thing over. It'd be like a dirt bike, I guess, just kicking it over. But yeah, it obviously was enough where, you know, the average Joe Blow could start the engine by hand by sticking the socket in here. But yeah, it's really interesting. I've never actually worked on a car with an old crank handle style crank bolt anyway. Then the balancer should just pull off. Should being the operative word. Oh, there we go. All right. So by the look of that, yep. So there's a keyway on there as well, just over here. That'll only go in one way. Right, so we can keep removing the timing case. Now, I just hope that all these bolts aren't different blinking sizes, which by the look of it probably is. I reckon it's probably going to be a combination. Yeah, what the heck? So I just had a 1/2 inch. That was too small. Oh, I got a 13 mil. What the hell? It just anyway. It's funny, some cars, you know, they've got different bolts holding them all together, but you'd think that being a car of this age, they'd all be the same, like they're all the same bolt size and thread. Well, I suppose not the thread, but just, you know, the same socket size for all the bolts. But I guess over time things might change, things might wear. Oh, there's a bit of elastic on there. I reckon this is, oh, see what I mean? Like, what the, okay, so there's a nut on the back side of that, and probably the same with this one, I reckon. Yeah. All right, so we'll put those bolts off to the side. So now we got to get a bigger socket. Probably go back to the Imperial stuff. All right. Yeah, cool. Loosen all that off. Okay, so just grab the nut from behind there as well, keep all that together. I guess the good thing about this compared to the Mini is that there isn't a great difference between the two. Like there is, but there's not, you know, huge differences, and if you've worked on one you can probably work on the other, I would imagine, because this is quite simple in its layout and design. Now there's a pretty big risk that when I remove this, oil is going to go absolutely everywhere. If that's the case, I need to clean it up. So what I'm going to do is just grab my oil drain tin, just going to lay it underneath here. I'm going to move that back as far as I can comfortably. Get the drain tin, we'll stick it underneath and then see if we're going to lose any oil. Alright, so the awkward moment when you realise you're talking to yourself for a couple of minutes and you then realise that you didn't hit start recording on the video. So essentially there was two nuts up here, so there's a bolt up under this one. Actually that looks like it's seen better days, great. And you got the stud here as well. So we might see if we can try and find a stud, even just drill it out a bit. It looks like it at one stage had probably been broken. Ah, there we go. So sorry, it was a stud, my bad. But there's not a lot of thread inside of here, so we've got to be really careful tightening that up. That's the original front engine mount. That is just absolutely cactus, so stick that one off to the side. We're gonna have to give all these parts a really good degrease. Now it does have a double row timing chain, which you can see. Look at, oh my goodness. Ugh, that's really frustrating. That should be locked on there with the keyway. So yeah, you can see like how much movement there is here. So I'm gonna see if I can get a vernier style adjustable timing chain set up. That'd be really good to try and get a bit more performance out of it, but also more reliability and less of this chain slap. Like, look at that. That's heaps. That is ridiculous. And also the sump gasket as well. That's seen better days. See you later. Alright, so next thing we need to do, the guy said he wants me to remove the Welsh plug, so we're going to just knock that out. We're going to... I'll need to go to the bolt shop tomorrow and get some bolts for the engine adapter plate to go on, and then we can probably get this thing stripped apart. I can't exactly remove the timing chain because I need to remove the sump. If I remove the sump, then I'm going to have to support it with the engine crane, so I'll probably just have to leave that. Let's maybe just see if we can spin it around a little bit, get a bit more of an idea as to how we're going to get this manifold off. Alright, so as I said, this one came off pretty easily. This one, let's have a look. Alright, oh, good catch. 1, 2, 3. The moment of truth. This is, I can almost guarantee this is not going to work. No way, look at this. Oh, what a fluke. You'd actually see what someone's done here. So, wow. It looks like they have literally gotten two nuts and they've just welded between the two. They put something in there, maybe like a, I don't know, a threaded rod or something. Can't even see. Or they've just somehow just welded and just built up all this on the side and then welded another nut on the top. Like, that is literally all just weld. That is phenomenal. Like, take my hat off to you. That's pretty damn solid effort. But man, that's going to go straight in the bin. We're going to go get some new nuts for this thing, because that that's as good as that is and as interesting as that is. That's going to go straight in the bin. So like I've said before, you always want to make sure that whatever you do on a job, that the next person doing it is going to be rating your work. So I'm fairly certain at some stage someone has had this engine out and apart. So whoever that was, mate, you know, I don't like to bag other people out, but you know, it just shows the sort of person you are if you're doing that sort of stuff. Another really cool, interesting thing here is it says the firing orders 1342 stamped on the original exhaust manifold, which you don't see that very often at all. I've just pulled that off, so we're going to have a look out the cylinders in a second. So let's just put that in the box. It's not too bad considering its age. Alright, so what's this here? Set tappets to 17th hour on back of cam when hot. Wow. So you got to get this thing red hot, whip this cover off, and then do your adjustments. Now, like, I definitely understand how that works, and you know, adjusting it hot, everything expands when it's hot. That's all good, but when you have problems like those nuts being in the way that aren't on there properly to be able to remove the inlet and exhaust manifold, it does make it quite hard. So let's remove these two nuts here. We also need to remove this bolt up underneath here. This is a PCV, a very early rudimentary PCV system. It's quite funny because like this just literally goes to atmosphere. I don't think there's a gasket, or not a gasket, but a filter in there whatsoever, so it's pretty funny, especially by today's standards. Alright, might be able to cheat, I wonder. Yeah, probably not going to be able to. I was hoping I could maybe just wiggle this up enough without loosening that, but we can't. So I'm just going to grab a 7/16 socket, just undo that nut, and we should be able to disconnect that pipe from the breather cover. There we go. All right, so just loosen that, and then aha, sweet, cool. Wow, look at this. Oh, it's a cork gasket, I think, by the look of it. That's cool. That is the biggest cork gasket I've ever seen in my life. That's cool. That is really cool. Sorry, I'm enjoying this build in case you can't tell. Studs. I'm not entirely sure what that is. Oh, that's the distributor spindle. That's what that is. So I wonder how that comes out. Usually they just twist. I might just have to do a bit of research on that, because that should just come straight up, I would imagine, unless there's a pin or something in there, which I doubt it, unless, hang on a minute, there seems to be maybe something here. Is that an Allen key? Possibly. There could be something inside there, or somewhere else. Anyway, it might come off easier once we pull the head off it. Okay. So what I might do next is, the guy that's going to be getting the machining done, he asked for everything to be removed off it. So all of the oil gallery plugs, all that jazz. So we're just going to remove all of these. That's got a brass washer on there. No, copper washer? No. Fibre washer, sorry. You clown. Yeah, those will go off to the side. So I'll stick them up here. And then we got the oil pressure feed pipe fitting, so then that one will come off as well. So you got to remember that we replace all the gaskets with these when you put them back together, otherwise we are going to cause some serious oil leaks. Alright, so we spun it around. We're just going to remove the thermostat housing. Probably chose the world's biggest socket to try and undo these bolts. Yeah, that's going to be a bit difficult, I think. If that's the case, might just be better off using a spanner. Just rotate that up. Okay, that's going to be interesting. So it could also be the fact that the bolt has got paint on it that's making it hard to be able to get on. Just going to try a different socket. It's a bit annoying actually that it is that close. Surely they would have just machined a little bit more off there. Okay, so that's not the thermostat. Maybe it doesn't run a thermostat. If you know the answer to this, please let me know, because because that is very interesting. Yeah, it looks like it's got a template for a temp sensor, which is very interesting. Anyway, so we need to find the water pump. We need to pull that out and apart. Okay, so that'll stay on there. Dipstick tube, the dipstick itself. What I find really funny about this is it's just got like a little lump in it, and then that's it. That's as far as it needs to go. So really cool. Working on this really old stuff is really interesting. If you've done it before, cool, but if you haven't, it's a very good learning curve, but also it's very, 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 very basic. So it's good to know, you know, how stuff goes together and how, you know, things have progressed over the years. Look at that, that needs to be cleaned, flushed. So yeah, interesting to see how things have progressed over the years and where we are now, and how the fundamentals of an engine ran, and then how they came to be how they are now. I think let's remove these bolts here that hold this bracket. And you can actually see now, hopefully, I'll just make sure that the camera is situated properly. You can actually see this bracket, this L-shaped bracket all the way along here. So I'm going to remove these bolts, and then that whole alternator should just pull out. Right, so here I'm just using a snap-on 5mm socket. You'll probably come up with a shorter bolt to do it, that's for sure. Just got to remember that when we loosen this other one, the alternator is going to drop significantly. So I'm just going to get prepared to hold that. Oh, cool. All right, alternator to the side. All right, so this is going to sound really, really dumb, and I've just asked my mate Paul Jeffries in the UK from Classic Mini Garage, does this car, should I say, does this engine actually have a water pump? I don't actually know, and I'm really interested to know, because apparently I need to remove it in order to get the engine redone. I've never known an engine to not have a water pump, whether it be manually driven one by the fan, or whether it be an electric water pump. Generally it should still have a mechanically driven water pump. So unless I'm missing something, unless it drives off something internally, which I really doubt, I'm not entirely sure. The top radiator hose sits up the top, which you can't see because I don't have the camera facing up. Top radiator hose sits up here. Bottom radiator hose goes to that housing on the side, which you saw me remove. I don't know. I'm really quite confused. So anyone in the comment section below, please let me know, because I'm very, very interested to know. Next thing, we're just going to remove the Welsh plugs, and then I'm going to call it a night. Tomorrow I need to go and get some longer bolts. The only thing is the bracket that sits on here, anyone that uses or has used a adapter plate to mount an engine on to be able to do it on an engine stand knows that you need bolts that are like at least 5 inches long to be able to get through here. So I need to get some of those tomorrow, which I will do, and lift it up, and we can continue stripping it, then I can send it to the machine shop. But yeah, until then, let's just remove the Welsh plugs. I'll call it a night, and then we'll start on it tomorrow. Now, we've spoken about these Welsh plugs before, core plugs, freeze plugs, whatever you want to call them. That's what we call them here in Australia. All I'm going to do is just push it in. Hopefully break the seal. So generally with these, if you push it in far enough like I just did, it'll just loosen it. So we just have to find it at a point where we can, should just fold in on itself. Might even just be able to get a magnet, depending on what it's made out of. Oh, can't, because it's a non-magnetic surface. Because the amount of sealant that's been on there just makes it a little bit hard to be able to get it out. Oh man, you should not have to use sealant like this on Welsh plugs. If you do, then there's something wrong. This thing needs to be seriously cleaned. Like, look at that, that's just rusty, dirty water. Ugh, yum. Not. Alright, so that's pretty much going to be us for the moment. As I said, I'm going to call it a night. At the moment, we are 10 PM. So I'll just leave it at that. I'll see what we can do in the morning. I'll go get some bolts for the back of the bell housing, and I'll mount it to the gearbox, or the engine stand, should I say. And then after we've done that, we'll rip the sump off. We need to pull the camshaft out, get the timing gears off, try and find this water pump. I'm pretty convinced at this stage it doesn't have one, which is very odd, but I don't understand how you'd have a car with coolant and radiator but no water pump. In saying that though, it doesn't seem to have a thermostat, which isn't a bad thing. It just means the engine will run quite cool. Maybe that's how they did it. But in saying that, they probably only went, 40 mile an hour back in the 50s and 60s and that. So it wasn't really, needed to have super high horsepower, high revving, super fast cars. Remember the first V8 engine they did was a flat tappet engine. I forget what it was. It was like a 2 litre or 3 litre or something. V8, big thing. Forget. Anyway, so that's really interesting. So yeah, I'll do that. We'll finish stripping it. We'll pull the flywheel off. Apparently there's a cover at the back of the engine that's got 3 bolts. And apparently if you remove that, it's like $600-700 to replace. So I don't know what the go is with that. So we'll soon find out. I might just do a little bit of investigating tonight, and before I jump back on tomorrow, to keep going with it as to what this thing actually needs in regards to its rebuild. I just hope that whatever I'm doing, it's right. As I said, it is very simple. It is a very basic car, basic engine, basic vehicle to work on. It's certainly heaps of fun. I'm loving every second of it. It's completely different to what I do, especially on IGs and working on Grace as well. So hope you guys are enjoying the content. Please guys, leave your comments in the section below, and leave me your feedback. Let me know your thoughts about the engine size. Does it have a water pump? What have you seen in these Morris Minors before? You ever seen an SR20 twin turbo thing? Like what do people do to them? I honestly don't know. This is the first one, as I said, that I've worked on. So well, that's it for tonight. I will see you guys in the morning with the second part of this engine disassembly.